My name is Joseph Reed, and my job is to make holy mistakes disappear. On paper, I'm a sanctification engineer. In practice, I go where the church doesn't want history to look and turn inconvenient relics into drift. Old miracle sites that misalign with doctrine. Apparitions that left the wrong kind of residue. Alien rubble priests once called proof of God before the theology committee changed its mind. I don't wear a collar or offer blessings. I sign contracts with the church's Office of Canonical Validation, the branch that decides what's real enough to preach and what gets quietly erased. They hire contractors like me to handle the erasing. I do it for money. A man who spends 20 years in hard labor belts, wrecks his joints and lungs, and doesn't walk away with savings. I do it because my son back on Earth has a tuition account tied directly to Vatican bonds, and those bonds are pegged to whether his father completes assigned work without doctrinal breach. That last phrase covers a lot. Take nothing, tell no one, bring back only what they approve. Today's job is site null. Most relics they assign me are small things, derelict probes, shrines built over real physics anomalies, burial pods containing bones that don't match anything in the holy books. Site null is an entire cathedral carved into an asteroid the size of a city, adrift in a dark band of the belt where civilian traffic rarely goes. The church calls it the Basilica of the Lost. The authority registry labels it Object 9HK, Theta. Contractors like me just call it bad news. I float strapped into the shuttle's restraining couch, running my pre-breach checklist while those names roll around my head. Basilica, object, bad news, same thing, different dialects. Harness secure, suit seals green, demolition charge packs online, spindle cutter charged, structural scanner synced, heart regulator implant ticking along in its steady artificial rhythm, one of the souvenirs from my years in high-G shipyards. On another monitor, the contract glows in tight text. Completion bonus 1.2 million liturgical credits, hazard multiplier, silence clause, enforcement listed as remote termination of physiological function. I've seen it used once. They weren't bluffing. Reed, quit reading the fine print. Bash's voice over the suit channel has the forced lightness of a man trying not to think about how far he is from help. Bash is our systems tech, the one who can coax reason out of alien consoles and Vatican adapters. You read it? I keep my gaze on the contract. Read it? I had my lawyer read it to me, bedtime story style. Still took the job. Your lawyer a believer now. My lawyer is a believer in invoices. On my right is Rusk, heavy rigging. He's the one you want lining up a charge in a load-bearing rib 300 meters long, broad shoulders, a face built from healed fractures, eyes that never settle on one point for long. They make a circuit of exits, anchor points, tool racks. He grunts once over the channel, uninterested in our contract banter. Close enough to affection coming from him. Farther forward in the cramped cabin, strapped in near the bulkhead, Deacon Corrin traces a small pattern in the air with his gloved hand. He's the church's liturgical attachment to our team, a young ordained man with engineering cross-training. His presence keeps the demolitions sanctified and gives the office an extra set of eyes inside the job. He whispers to himself, a prayer probably. I ignore it. The last voice in my ear belongs to Bishop Vane. He rides in an armoured escort craft pacing our tug, a separate vessel with its own engines and failsafes. As Vatican overseer assigned to Site Null, he has full canonical containment authority. He can override our air, power, and suits at will. Final approach in 3, Vane announces. You're all aware of mission parameters. For the record, we'll review. He always does this. Ritual summary like time matters more than meaning. I've worked under him twice before. Same calm cadence, same precise words. Primary objective: render Site Null inert through controlled overload of the central mass reactor and subsequent cascade collapse. Secondary objective: secure and transmit architectural and energetic telemetry relevant to doctrinal assessment. Tertiary objective: survive, if convenient to the first two. Bash gives a low whistle. Love being tertiary. That's still on the record, Deacon Sebastian. Please keep commentary to a minimum. Just bash. Bash mutters, switching off the main channel for a second, aimed only at me. I smirk without letting it into my voice. You heard the man. Be pure. The bishop continues. Collect only sanctioned samples. Route all visual and technical record through your relay link. Any deviation activates contract enforcement. Enforcement. The polite word for the small-shaped charge wired into the neural harness at the back of my neck, connected by encrypted pulse to the bishop's console. The bench shudders sideways as the shuttle separates from the tug and locks onto Site Null's docking collar. I picture the others still on the tug. Evo in the pilot cradle watching our telemetry. 2 extra techs checking rigging cradles and detachable demolition shells. The harness indicators flip from tug local gravity to basilica local field. Almost nil. We're crossing from human-made mass to alien stone. When the dashboard chirps ready, I unclip, push off the bench, and drift toward the forward hatch. The cabin is compact and utilitarian. Straps, racks of tools, vacuum suits layered in foam and hard plating. A deliberate lack of icons or crosses. The church prefers not to mix symbols with the kind of work we do. I thumb my wrist unit, pulling up a personal overlay only I can see. A small line item shows my son's account balance. I watch the digits, remind myself why I'm here. 2 cleared missions left and he's paid through Academy. If I live that long. Reed! Vane cuts in. Confirm you're in command on site. Confirming. I clip on my helmet. Joseph Reed, Sanctification Engineer, Mission Lead for Contractor Team. Site Null is under canonical containment. You're authorized to employ any level of force against internal anomalies short of jeopardizing the overload sequence. Stay within those bounds. We'll drill, we'll wire, we'll leave. A beat of quiet. Your life is valuable. Your compliance is more so. The line clicks passive. I look at Bash and Rusk. Corin meets my gaze last, with that priestly mix of fear and yearning in his eyes, like part of him wants to see miracles, and the other part wants them to stay in stories. This is demolition, I tell them. Don't let the architecture talk you into anything else. I hit the hatch control. The outer door peels away and reveals Site Null. We're docked to a protrusion halfway up one of its outer walls. Outside, through the transparent segment of the ramp, the basilica dominates everything. Imagine a classic old earth cathedral. Spires, arches, buttresses, stretched until one spire is the length of a small continent, carved out of fused asteroid rock and a black composite that swallows the stars around it. Human scaffolding clings to our docking area. Thin girders, beige pressure tents, guidance beacons. Everything else is alien. An exterior without recognizable markings, maintenance lights, or windows. I've seen other relics. This one dwarfs them all. Whole thing looks like somebody's toy church left in a forge. Rusk drifts up beside me as we move through the short pressurized connector. Client calls it a basilica. We call it a job. You think they prayed here? They did something here. The office doesn't hire me for places that float politely. Corin glides along behind us, one hand on the rail. The term Basilica of the Lost comes from the Bull of Discovery, Captain. The first survey monks saw the resemblance to our cathedrals and named it accordingly, parallels to St. Peter's and history lesson later. I punch the inner lock controls. The indicator flips from red to yellow as our systems handshake with Site Null's ports. The church spent decades building adapters for alien infrastructure. No one fully understands the original software, but they can open doors, power corridors, and pull telemetry. Yellow shifts to green. Atmosphere, none. Temperature, just above background. Radiation, steady, tolerable. Helmet sealed, lines tight, I call. Once we're in, tethers only on my mark. The station has gravity patches in places, and we don't know where they kick in. We push through into the basilica. The first space is a long airlock hall built on a scale that insults human proportions. The walls curve 30 meters overhead, studded with dark hexagonal ports and embossed glyphs that ripple in repeating patterns. Under my palm, the surface feels smoother than it looks, like the inside of a machine casing. They built big, Rusk murmurs. Maybe this is modest for them. Bash's voice drifts over the channel. You should see some of the internal schematics. You've seen schematics? I pivot toward him. When? On the tug. Vane's people sent partial scans. Outer shell only. He shrugs in his harness. Interior's mostly blank. One huge central void, mass around it. Big spike in the middle. The altar spire. That's our way into the reactor. Corin drifts closer to a wall panel, visor almost touching. The iconography here. I snag his tether, pull him back. We're here to carve holes and plant explosives. Save iconography for theologians back home, Deacon. He nods. At the end of the hall, a door stands closed. Alien, not ours. A slab of layered material, ridged and patterned with intersecting grooves. Charges? I flick a look at Rusk. We could brute it, he replies. But the adapters should open an official path, right? Holy permission and all that. I gesture to Bash. Try polite first. Bash drifts forward with the Vatican interface kit clipped at his belt. Slim module, extendable prongs, integrated translator mimicking handshake patterns from other sites. He presses the prongs into the grooves. Silence while he watches his wrist feed. Got a response, he mutters. We're in the queue. It's authenticating us as service personnel, I think. The door retracts in petal segments. Beyond, the space opens out and keeps opening. I've walked human-built megastructures, docks, refineries, manufacturing rings. They're functional, modular, grounded. The basilica's central nave feels like a tribute to size for its own sake. A monument built to make every visitor small before anything else registers. We drift through the threshold. The nave stretches ahead until it disappears into darkness. Arches rise on either side, thick and curved, cross-braced with beams like elongated ribs. Where a human cathedral would have pews, this place has empty lanes wide enough for armored vehicles to fly side by side. No floor in the middle, just open volume, with wide platforms clinging to the sides at different levels. Suspended in that volume, hanging in stillness, are the angels. At first, I take them for statues. The human brain defaults that way. They are humanoid in outline, with 2 arms, 2 legs, wings, heads. They're arranged down the nave in rows, upright as if standing troop in unseen gravity. My suit lights crawl over one and erase the word statue. The nearest angel is 3 times my height. Its wings are layered frameworks, each feather a flattened blade with channels scored into it. The channels hold shriveled organic strands, unmistakably grown. Its torso armor is smooth plates jointed for a wide range of motion. A vertical seam divides the center of its chest. The head is worse. Where a human face would be, it has 3 concentric rings of glassy eyes, each the size of my fist, facing forward. Below, a hinged plate covers an access port instead of a mouth. Corin's breathing grows louder over the line. Seraphim, he whispers. Multiple wings, multiple eyes, as in Ezekiel's vision. It's industrial. I drift closer. Combat hardware. Rusk spins slowly to take in the count. Angels stretch into the distance, row after row, perfectly aligned. You could deploy these over a planet and wipe everything that twitched. Unless something worse wiped them first, Bash mutters. His visor feed frames one angel and runs organic spectrum estimates. Gymnastic range is insane. Bone density off the charts. See the harness ports along the spine. They were meant to plug into something bigger. Focus on our task. Vane cuts in, calm and cold. Angels fall under Index Sanctus. Disturb them only when demolition layout strictly requires. You knew they were here, I answer. Briefing said possible remains. This is a full host. You are there for the reactor. You're wasting mission time describing corpses. Corpses. I drift close enough to touch the nearest angel. Scuffs and pitting mar its surface. Joints lie frozen. Around the chest seam, scoring marks pucker the metal. Impacts from weapons I don't recognize. Something once tried to crack it open. I angle my wrist, adjusting my private feed. On my inner display, the hidden recorder in my gauntlet spins up, a tiny icon in the corner. Contraband tech a friend embedded into my suit's neural bus. Hidden channels, compressed telemetry, dangerous to own, priceless if you ever need leverage. I frame the angel's head. The icon glows, recording. "Read!" Vane's voice sharpens. "You're transmitting unsanctioned video." "Negative," I answer instantly, testing my local overlay. His pause feels long. "Mind your focus." I shift my arm, pretend to check suit seals. The recorder keeps running. We move deeper into the nave. As we pass the angels, their eye rings catch our beams in ways that make them look briefly awake. It's an illusion, but my fingers twitch on the tether. Halfway down the nave, one of the extra techs, Gaz, pushes off toward a side platform to place a structural marker. He misjudges momentum, kicks too hard, and drifts straight toward an angel. "Watch your vector," Rusk calls. "I've got it." Gaz flails for a handhold. His shoulder slams into the angel's chest plate. His tether snaps taut. The seam down the angel's chest pops open. Inside, where lungs and heart would sit, a compact gun assembly nests in withered tissue, tubes and cables. Barrel, breech, feed system, all wired to the frame. The gun twitches once, finding center. My hand jerks toward him. The slug erupts. No air here, no sound, just recoil and motion. The projectile punches through Gaz's upper arm and spins off into the nave, trailing frozen red spheres. His arm snaps sideways at an angle no joint can take. Suit vitals spike. He tumbles, gasping breaths ragged on the channel. I lunge, grabbing his tether. Rusk grabs mine. We haul him back toward the platform. Bash swings his medpack forward. "Pressure ring on the breech now." "I can't..." Gaz chokes, then curses in a frantic stream. "Thing shot me! That thing!" "It's still moving," Rusk mutters. He's right. The gun flexes again, then slows. The barrel tracks sluggishly through a small arc, like a half-asleep eye failing to focus. "Residual charge," Bash breathes. "It woke just enough to fire a round. The rest of the system's dead, I think." "Think isn't enough," Vane cuts in. "Tag that unit as hazard and chart your routes around it. No further tampering." "Gaz needs evac." I press the sealant ring around his arm, watching it harden over the hole in his suit. Med systems flood anesthetic and coagulant. "Pilot Evo will retract shuttle 3 meters and run remote draw," Vane replies. "Get him back to the lock and attach an auto tug. Other men can handle structural markers." Gaz groans as the drugs hit. "Don't let them throw me out the airlock, Captain." "Relax. You're worth more alive. They spent too much training you." He gives half a laugh. Better than nothing. We pull him back toward the access door and hand him off to a remote-activated stretcher. The shuttle hatch closes over his drifting form. One man gone. Reminder that everything in here still carries some spark. I turn back to the nave, to the ranks of angels, to the dark length ahead. "Bash!" I steady my breathing. "Path to that central spike of yours, the altar spire. Already plotted. Straight ahead past the host. One more breach door, then you get your first glimpse of God. Let's go bother him." We reach the throne chamber through a second alien door. Segments, grooves, hidden mechanisms. Bash plugs in, the adapters do their dance, and the pieces retract. The chamber beyond is a half-sphere turned on its side. The far wall curves up and around overhead. Concentric terraces step toward a raised platform at the center. No fixed gravity, only a faint directional pull from the basilica's mass, convincing my brain there should be up and down even as my body drifts. On the central platform stands the throne. It's built like a reinforced chair frame bolted into the station's core, a utilitarian structure with its back rising into a spine of connectors. Thick bundles of cables run from that spine into the walls and ceiling like roots. The throne isn't furniture. It's plumbing and conduit and command. Something sits in it. I've seen photographs in classified briefings, crude scans from earlier sites, narrow angles, partial silhouettes. None of them prepared me. The body in the throne shares the angel's architecture: bipedal, 2 arms, head, larger, 8 meters from seat to crown, limbs wasted, skin drawn tight over long bones, wrong in ways my eyes stumble over. Where wings once mounted, framed panels and sockets jut out, racks filled with dead devices wired back into the chair. The face anchors everything. Mask plates cover most of the skull. The lower portion remains exposed, flesh shriveled and leathery. A rigid band wraps its temples, studded with ports, injectors and knuckle-sized devices. Half its head is hardware. Is that... Bash trails off. The occupant of the throne, Corin breathes. The first presence, foundation of our recorded visions. The one who spoke to our ancestors through... We don't know that. I watch the cables buried in its flesh. We know your bosses want it gone. Below the throne, rising from the floor like a column, stands the altar spire, the central data and control structure housing the primary core. The thing mission planners back in Rome dream about and don't want to see. The spire is a smooth pillar 10 meters across, surface tiled in hexagonal plates that shift faintly under my light. Around its base, human hardware clings. Vatican interface modules, power taps, sacramental metal plaques glued on for whoever needs the gesture. Bash glides over and slots his interface module into a prepared port. Bringing up the system. I float nearby, one hand on a grab point. Rusk hangs back by the door, watching. Corin drifts closer to the throne, eyes locked on the giant form. Don't touch it, I call without looking. We don't know what its sensors still listen to. It's dead. Corin's voice stays soft. Look at it. I'm looking at a body wired into a command chair. Death hasn't been confirmed until we pull power feeds. He falls quiet. On my wrist, Bash's connection status scrolls. We've got a handshake, he mutters. Hierarchical security scheme. Base matches smaller sites, but with more layers. I can see peripheral systems. Navigation, weapons, defense grid. Reactor control sits behind another barrier, locked behind rank. Can you get through? It goes beyond password gates. Command levels are built around roles, authorities. The system expects whoever orders a core overload to hold a certain rank in its hierarchy. I have to spoof that. You figure it out. We need that reactor. Give me a minute. My visor feed ripples. Without Bash doing anything obvious, a projection blooms in the air above the spire. Not normal light, information given shape. It forms the outline of the throne occupant, not as the corpse above us, but standing at full strength. Limbs thick with muscle, wings whole, armor intact. The projection speaks. The first burst comes in a language that bites at my ears, sharp consonants, wrong pauses. The Vatican translator kicks in, overlaying a thin, flat human language track. Stranded at node Basilica 7, the voice reports. No contact from High Council in 3 cycles. Local client biospheres remain unresponsive. Genetic tithe overdue. Engines compromised. Core requires new stock. I feel Corin's stare on the image. It's him. It's... Quiet. The translation rolls on. Repeated transmission of doctrine to nearest client world produces only low-level cognitive agitation. No vessels, no tithe engines, no carrier pods. Species uses broadcast as ritual stimulus. They emulate gestures and cycle phrases, but do not construct tools for uplift. Leaders enforce doctrine for local control and ignore obligations. Recommend disciplinary harvest. What's a disciplinary harvest? Bash murmurs. Nothing we want to see. The projection shifts. Star maps and unfamiliar landscapes flicker past. At one point, a view zooms on a blue-white sphere whose continents almost match Earth's earlier shapes. Client world builds houses for my words, not engines for my rescue, the translation continues. They kneel and sing while my core rots. They respond in praise instead of ships. Wasteful. If relief does not arrive, I will consume them as punishment. If relief arrives, I will consume them as example. They are interchangeable. What a charming god, Bash mutters. I thought he'd be grander, less petty. Corin's voice frays. He wasn't addressing us. These are communications among powers. Of course they... Terminate the playback. Vane slices across the channel. I didn't start it, Bash protests. It triggered when I opened... Shut it down, now! Bash swipes his interface. The projection collapses. We don't have the authority to pass those logs mid-mission, Vane continues. You're here to reach reactor controls, not indulge curiosity. You knew what was on them, I answer. I know enough. Every detail is a fresh panic waiting to happen. Stay on task, Reed. I flick my recorder icon off and on again. The Warlord's monologue is cached. I wonder how many church filters a recording like that would have to survive if I ever try to use it. Keep digging into reactor access, I tell Bash. If their command hierarchy runs on status, spoof the highest rank you can. I'm trying. His fingers move in short, precise bursts. Every authority level I fake wakes another branch to check it. This feels like threading an angry bureaucracy. You love angry bureaucracy. It means someone left documentation. He snorts. Behind us, Corin drifts closer to the throne. If that was truly the first presence, then he suffered. Waiting here abandoned, calling out across ages. There's something almost Christ-like in that pathos. I stare at the desiccated thing on the chair. Cables thick enough to hoist a dropship pierce through its flesh. Multiple lines enter the skull through ragged holes rimmed in blackened scar tissue. The crown here is a harness built to milk a commander until he stopped being a person and became firmware. I mutter. We're not equipped to judge. Everyone's equipped to judge, I cut in. Some just pretend they aren't. Reactor controls blink into new colors on Bash's feed. Got something. Access to a supervisory shell, at least. Reactors in cold lockdown. I can bring it up in stages, reroute gravity fields, arm an overload path. Can you make it collapse inward? I ask. I don't want half the belt full of shrapnel miners complain about for the next century. To a degree, he grimaces. I can shape the initial vectors. After that, we're wrestling a mountain. Best case, we crush the core into slag and send most mass inward. Worst case, wide hazard sphere. So we clear a radius before you trigger. How long between warm-up and no return? Standard procedure is 90 minutes. Enough time for a crew to get clear. With this monster, I'd prefer 2 hours. We don't have 2 hours, Vane cuts in. Civilian survey sweep enters this sector in under an hour. Once they're inbound, they could pick up emissions. You'll compress the sequence. 90 minutes is already tight, Bash snaps. If anything goes wrong. 50 minutes from initial warm-up to core failure, Vane repeats. Front-load energy injection. Rely on Basilica's stress relief systems to shape the collapse. Our analysts confirm it's viable. Analysts safe in their chairs. You hear that? I ask Bash. 50 minutes. Can you do it? He hesitates, then nods. I can build a profile. If the defense grid wakes during the ramp, we'll be inside a hornet nest when the countdown starts. Then move fast enough the nest doesn't fully stir, Vane remarks. Tension prickles through the team channel. He just said our lives are margin of error. Fine. I let it out on a slow breath. We'll make it work. I'm lying about the ease, but arguing more gets me a reminder about the charge at my neck. Rusk, take the others. Map load points around the nave, I order. We need demolition nodes aligned with the station's stress paths. Bash and I stay here and arm the sequence. Rusk pushes off without argument, motioning the 2 remaining techs to follow. Corin tears his gaze from the throne and drifts after them. Once they're gone, I lean closer to Bash and lower my voice. Can you bake in a delay? I ask. Something we control. We already have a delay, it's called the countdown. I mean hidden. A bypass in case Vane gets nervous and triggers early. Something to stall or abort. He glances at the throne. You're asking me to lie to both sides. I want options, I answer. I don't like being the detonator end of someone else's story. He works in silence then. I can build a manual choke point, a physical override. If we reach a specific control junction before zero, we can cut the cascade. But it'll only exist once I reroute half these pathways. So if we miss the moment, we die anyway. Pretty much. Put the junction where we can reach it without crossing the nave with angels awake. He peels off a map. Maintenance gallery below this chamber, connected to a pressure tube leading toward the docking spur. I can route control through there. If the defense grid notices, it may pay extra attention to that area. Do it. Better to know where attention concentrates if something starts hunting us. I float there, watching the dead warlord above while Bash threads his code through alien structures and church adapters. My recording icon spins in the corner of my view. I should turn it off. Every second of unauthorized footage increases the risk Vane's people spot the extra bandwidth in audit. I leave it running anyway. Small, stubborn act. This is how it starts. Small acts, small lies, small workarounds. You tell yourself you're doing it to keep your people alive, to get your kid through school, to give yourself a chip if they decide you're disposable. You don't notice when you become what they expect. Someone who bends rules, but not enough to break the system. Reactor profile ready, Bash announces at last. Once I commit, we start the 50-minute ramp. After that, we either reach the override junction and abort, or the basilica tears itself apart with us inside if we're slow. Start it! He looks at the spire, then at me, then at the corpse in the throne. Forgive me, he whispers to nobody in particular, and confirms the sequence. The basilica responds. Vibration under my glove deepens like a distant engine turning over. The vacuum around my suit feels different as mass shifts inside. Reactor ramp initiated, Vane calls. 50-minute window. After 35, I retain full authority to detonate if containment is threatened. Proceed with urgency. A countdown appears on my HUD. Rusk, report. Anchors in the nave, Rusk answers, voice grainier at this range. Load paths are strange. This place wasn't built to fall neatly. You'd think a warlord would design for self-destruct, but he breaks off. Rusk, we're fine. Gravity patch flickered near midline. Adjusting. Tate, one of the techs, cuts in. The angels moved. Be specific. They straightened, just a bit. All of them aligned a little more toward the center. Residual field bleed, Bash mutters. Reactor outputs ramping. Superconductive veins in the angels are drawing charge. They're built to feed from the core. Let me damp the... Stay off angelic systems. Vane interrupts. They remain under Index Sanctus. Your control surface is the reactor. You want them asleep, I snap. Damping helps. I want the basilica destroyed. Interfering with mechanisms we barely understand during a compressed timeline increases risk more than modest activation of non-functional host units. They shot Gaz, I remind him. A short pause. You have your choke point. If the situation becomes untenable, you may abort. Until then, stay on plan. Copy. We leave the throne chamber the way we came, then drop through a hatch into the maintenance gallery. The corridor below is narrower than the nave, but still oversized, a service spine lined with conduits and anchors. As we move, I watch the station map on my HUD. New energy clusters appear as reactor power climbs. Some match angel positions. Others light up deeper layers without schematics. We link up with Rusk and the others at a cross-junction where the maintenance spine intersects the nave's undercarriage. They float around a structural node, a massive rib-like beam supporting a section of nave wall. Our demolition charges cling there like barnacles, remote-armed and tied into the sequence. Anchors in layers 2 and 3 placed, Rusk reports, sweat beading at his hairline inside his helmet. 4 and 5 need us under the main host. Their foot racks tie straight into the structural spine. More movement! I glance through a wide aperture toward the nave. The angels hang in perfect rows, wings half spread. Their faces tilt a few degrees more toward the throne's direction. Several rotated a degree or two, Tate answers, like they're orienting on the core. That's harmless, I'm sure, Bash mutters. Stop watching them, I tell the team. Work your plan. Charges on priority load points, not under live guns if you can help it. We have 45 minutes. 44, Vane corrects. We split. Rusk and Tate climb the upper beams. Corin follows, logging each anchor point for church registry. Bash and I drop lower, where the maintenance spine wraps under the nave floor toward the reactor hull. I try not to think about the mass above us. Thousands of tons of alien stone and metal held together by systems we're destabilizing. Question, Bash says quietly. Think any of this matters? Destroying this place, hiding the logs, pretending our god wasn't... That. Matters to who? To us. To people back home. To your kid. I focus on aligning a charge against a hexagonal support. He needs a roof, food, and a world where half the population doesn't drop everything to panic because their prayers were misaddressed. He doesn't need purity. So you'd keep the lie, Bash presses, even after that projection. It isn't my lie, it's theirs. I just work near it. That's the kind of thing Vane tells himself. Maybe. Difference is, I know I'm a coward and a thief. He thinks he's a shepherd. He doesn't argue. We place 4 charges in the lower beams. Each links into the choreography, force time to push the basilica inward, collapsing channels into the reactor. Bash checks alignment and updates the profile. The countdown dips under 40. Tate's scream hits our channel. The suit feed distorts it into a high mechanical wail, but the edge is human. Something's got him, Rusk barks. Mid-nave, tier 3. I'm pinging his locator. Route me his feed. My HUD splits to Tate's visor. Chaos, metal feathers, a flash of red. Vitals spike, then flatline. The feed dies. What happened? One angel opened. Rusk's voice shakes. Pulled him inside. Harness arms grabbed him, docked him into its chest like a pilot. His suit's off my board. Any movement from the others? Vane asks. Some pivoted toward us, like they're scanning. Get out of their sight, I snap. Side corridors only. No more placements in the open. Use what you've set. We're done losing people to curiosity. We still have bare load points, Rusk protests. The collapse will be whatever we live long enough to wire. You heard him. We're tertiary. Bash gives a grim chuckle. It dies fast. Reactor output climbs, a smooth, rising curve. As power increases, the basilica's systems wake. Lines from core to angels, from angels to subsidiary nodes buried in walls. Neural mesh command nets, residual routines catching energy. Read, Vane again. Report. We lost Tate to an angel integrating him, I answer. Host is stirring. We're dropping new placements in exposed zones, focusing on what we can reach fast from the lower spine. You will maintain placement density, Vane counters. The basilica must be fully destabilized. You want to come root them yourself? Corin cuts in, breath ragged. Bishop, some of the host units are singing. I blink. Explain. They're emitting vibrations through internal vents, overlapping, like chant but in their own tongue. It matches fragments from early visions, the choir of heaven. Your deacon is having a spiritual moment, Vane remarks. Get him back on task. Corin, if they're making noise, you're too close. Fall back to cover. This is a sign, Corin insists. The first presence is awakening with the core. We're... A sharp crack interrupts him, then a grunt. Corin! Bash blurts. Wing slice caught my leg, Corin gasps. I can move. Suit integrity compromised but patched. It's environmental damage. I can still work. Then move. You're no use as an offering. This is not obey your mission lead, Vane snaps. You're here to log and sanctify, not become a martyr. Do it from somewhere survivable. Corin wrestles his faith back down. Yes, Bishop. We scramble through lower galleries, placing what charges we can. Time shrinks. 38 minutes. 37. More systems wake. In the maintenance spine, smaller devices stir. Nodes on walls, vents sliding open, tiny arms unfolding. Some track us in silence. Others extend sensors that bathe us in unfamiliar wavelengths. At first, they only watch. Then they test. In one narrow stretch, a turret blossoms from the ceiling, a cluster of tubes in a ring. It emits high-frequency bursts that slam into my suit. HUD flares. Chest plate stress. Energy load near tolerance. Move! Bash yanks my harness. We kick off the wall, drifting sideways as the turret tracks. It fires again, catching the tech behind us, Killian across his torso. His indicators spike, then vanish. Where the beam hits, his armor curls inward, the body inside goes still. We tumble into a side shaft, out of its arc. Cillian's gone, Bash whispers. I clamp down on anger. Rage wastes oxygen. We're down to 4 inside. Me, Bash, Rusk, Corin. Gaz and Tate gone or dying. Cillian dead. Evo's on the tug. If you want this place destroyed, Bishop, we need more than running face first into auto-defenses. Agreed, Vane replies. I considered your earlier request. You'll get your option now. He pauses. I'm arming the central demolition cascade. We're still inside, Bash snaps. I won't allow a full awakening. Primary charges now sit on a dead man trigger tied to the reactor curve. If the defense grid redirects too much load away from your charges, I'll spike everything at once. You're ready to kill us with our own detonations, I say. I'm committed to burying this relic. Your prep work is sufficient. Your exit remains your responsibility. Reach your override junction in time, and you might save yourselves as well as complete the mission. Fail, and at least the basilica falls. Static crackles as Rusk swears in an old belt dialect about being crushed in seams. Corin's voice comes quieter. Bishop, you can't just— I can. Vane cuts him off. Because I must. Our first responsibility is to the faithful billions who know nothing of this site. Your lives are tools toward that end. Use them well. The line drops to passive. I look at the countdown. 33 minutes. Bash meets my eyes through glass. We're numbers to him, always were. We're numbers on a page, I agree. And we're good at being numbers. So what now? Now we run faster. I force calm into my voice. Stop placing new charges. Accept what we've wired. Get to the override junction and decide if we finish his job or ruin it. Ruin it how? By cutting the cascade. Leave the basilica as a half-awake tomb instead of slag. Someone else comes later and finds out too much. Maybe that someone is us, selling the story. You'd risk that for a payoff? I'd risk it for leverage. Information outruns liturgical credits. If we walk out with proof that God was a stranded thug raging at his bosses, people will pay. So we become the cult panic the office fears. We become rich. We buy a place past the church's reach. We watch chaos from far away. And your kid. He grows up with an account that doesn't depend on keeping secrets for men like Vane. He looks away. You really think they'd let us handle it? That they wouldn't just kill us and bury the story? They can't kill what they don't know we kept. He doesn't look convinced. We move. The corridor slopes toward the reactor hull. Side chambers branch off. Storage vaults filled with disassembled parts, racks of devices, shapes that might be more angels half-built. Some bear limbs without faces, some faces without limbs. A few twitch weakly as we pass, responding to the reactor's rising song. In one vault I pause. Dozens of aborted designs cling to the walls. Forms differ from the nave host in disturbing ways. Extra limbs, redundant spines, heads split into segments. Some rib cages stay permanently open, as if never meant to hold anything. Others show seams from dissection. Their mouths, or equivalents, move in small, repetitive patterns. Corin switches to my private channel. They're reciting, he whispers. Listen. I route audio to external pickup. Vacuum blocks sound, but vibration through my suit carries enough. Against the hum of the ramp, I catch faint, rhythmic waves, The translator struggles, then latches onto familiar phonemes. Sanctus, 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 it renders. Dominus. The rest blurs into alien syllables tangled with Latin fragments. The first survey monks recorded this. Corin breathes. The choir of heaven rehearsing for the end of days. Our liturgy follows this pattern. Our liturgy follows war machines practicing formation, I answer. Someone mixed their sources. He doesn't answer. We push on. By the time we reach the reactor hull, the countdown reads 19 minutes. The hull curves around us in a thick wall, layered material fed by conduits from every direction. Some glow faintly in the infrared. Vatican crews left white paint on the surface, here, with arrows pointing toward an access port. Subtle, Bash mutters. We anchor near the port, a circular hatch 3 meters wide, studded with connection points. Bash plugs in again. Overload profiles live, he reports. Core temperature rising on schedule. Stress channels activating. I see Vane's dead man hook. If defenses shunt too much load from our charges, the hook spikes everything. Can you see the override junction? Yeah. Between here and the docking spur in the spine beneath the throne chamber. Once we leave this spot, we go straight there. Any detour, we lose the window. Then no detours. Anything you can do here so Basilica still breaks even if we cut the cascade. He frowns. You want to sabotage the overload while standing on the hull. I want the church to inherit rubble, not a pristine relic. Can you seed instability so this place tears itself apart slowly over years instead of instantly? He studies the data. I can introduce microfracture patterns in containment. Stress seeds. As the station drifts and cools, the core will fragment. Big chunks might survive, but the whole won't. Do it. You're playing both sides again. Welcome to my career. He works fast. Tiny parameters shift on my HUD. Trace power redirects, stress seeds buried in acceptable drift. A warning flashes. Unsanctioned modification detected. Careful. Relax. That's the Basilica complaining, not the Vatican. The harness doesn't recognize this channel pattern. I'm hiding alterations inside normal variants. Just don't wake anything behind that throne more than it's already awake. I doubt anything's left to wake. We saw its logs. We saw it tied into its chair until it died. Whatever divinity it had is long gone. A panel above us slides aside. A small device descends on a mechanical arm. A sphere with multiple lenses. It pivots, focusing on us, then on Bash's connection. The translator throws errors. The sphere fires a tight beam at the port where Bash's cables enter. Sparks arc. That's not happy, he mutters. Give me a second to... A thin needle extends toward his forearm. My cutter's already in my hand, a compact lance of energy for slicing metal. I flick it on and draw it across the arm, holding the sphere, severing the joint. The sphere tumbles. I catch it, crush it against the hull, and drive the cutter in until lenses crack and it goes dark. Subtle, Bash repeats. Time check. We seeded the instability. He glances at his feed. Ramps on schedule. If we stick to the plan, we reach the override junction with 3 or 4 minutes to spare. If nothing slows us. Nothing will. We push off and head back. The Basilica disagrees. As we pass the vault of failed angels, wall vibrations intensify. Aborted units strain against mounts. One snaps free, launching into the corridor. It moves clumsily, a newborn with adult limbs, head lolls, chest fused, left arm ends in a mass of unformed tendons. Right arm is complete. It swings. I twist in microgravity, feel the blow glance off my shoulder instead of my helmet. The impact spins me down the corridor. Corin grabs my leg, arresting the spin. Bash fires his cutter, slicing across the creature's torso. The beam gouges a glowing trench through withered flesh and scorched alloy. The thing doesn't flinch. It grabs Bash's harness and drags him in. Rusk bursts from a side hatch, heavy rig in both hands. He slams the rig into the angel's elbow joint. Once, twice. On the third hit, the joint gives. The arm tears free, drifting, still twitching. Go! Rusk hammers at the creature again. I'll clear the corridor. You clear it, you follow, I answer. Move. You're the only one who knows the override route. He's right. The map's been living in my head since Bash built it. We drag ourselves past, leaving Rusk pounding on the half-formed angel. Through the hatch, I see him swinging, the creature shuddering. Behind it, other units strain, restraints creaking. The hatch panel slides down between us. Rusk! I slam my fist into the closing door. Move! Static and impacts bleed through the feed. Then a grunt. Then nothing. Commandant? Corin whispers. He knew what he was doing. I answer. We move. The countdown ticks. 10 minutes. 9:59. 9:58. We reach the cross-junction under the throne chamber. This is the choke point Bash built. Thick conduits converge into a control block the size of a hovercar, wrapped in human adapters like barnacles. This is it, Bash breathes. Override junction. We latch on. Bash plugs in, fingers shaking. I can still cancel, he mutters. Turn the cascade into a slow bleed. We walk away, find a pirate net, sell what we know. Let the basilica rot over decades instead of dying today. You can. I stare at the interface. Or you leave this place intact enough for someone less scrupulous to turn it into a shrine or weapon. And you'd rather trust the church, he demands. After what we saw, I don't trust them. I trust their predictability. They'll bury it and lie like they always do. The world keeps turning. What about the truth? The truth is a story we use to feel special. The truth here is that a petty tyrant on a chair screamed into the void, and some of his tantrums brushing earth turned into prophets and saints. You want to rip away the comfort that gives millions and replace it with nothing but that? Yes, maybe. Then you're braver than I am, or more reckless. On the main channel, Vane cuts in. Read, your vitals are stationary. Why are you idle? We're at the junction. I don't look up. We have a decision to make. You don't. Complete the overload as designed. No alternatives. I have other considerations, like not dying for free. You'll be compensated according to contract, Vane replies. Your son will receive full support. You have my word. I bark a short laugh. Your word and a neural detonator. Joseph. He lowers his tone, practice concern. We both know what happens to worlds that lose shared meaning. We've seen records from other sites. Every leak, every time someone discovered the divine was just a stranded soldier or broken machine. Fractured cultures. People turned to private gods or despair. Violence followed. I exist to prevent that. You keep chairs like that one on life support, I answer. Even when they're empty. He falls quiet. You're not going to talk me into dying, I tell him. Not for your theology. I'm not asking you to die, Vane insists. Stay until the cascade completes. If you do, I keep the dead man hook for emergencies only. If you attempt to abort, I trigger it immediately and we watch from orbit as the basilica tears you apart. He holds all the cards. He can detonate our charges, kill my suit with a pulse, freeze my heart, burn my nerves. Except for one thing. I mute the shared channel, dropping his voice to a buzz. I switch to the private line with Bash and Corin. You promised you'd never be like him, Bash mutters. You said you weren't a shepherd. I'm not. I'm a man who wants to go home. Then what are we doing? Corin's voice is frayed, earlier certainty gone. We're choosing. The control block offers two clear routes. One preserves the cascade as planned, annihilating the basilica. The other reroutes the build-up, bleeding it out slow through auxiliaries. Both risk Vane's hand. Both risk us. A third path isn't on any menu, I see it anyway. I could make the cascade irreversible and shorten the timeline further, forcing a faster break before Vane can detonate on his own terms or order withdrawal. Tie the dead man directly to the docking clamp so his guarantee of destruction also frees my ship. Another thought lurks behind that. Use the junction to cut my team out of the survival equation. Focus auto-defenses on this spot, then slip away while they hold the line. Their presence buys me minutes I don't have alone. My hand hovers over the interface. Joseph, Corin asks, what are you thinking? Thinking Vane's right about one thing. If this truth got out, it would tear a lot of people apart. It wouldn't make anything better. It would just make everything raw. And I'm not dying for the privilege of telling it. Not when my kid needs me alive, even if I come home dirty. I hook into the control block. In the end, the choice is simple. I lock the cascade in place and shorten the window by 10 minutes, front-loading enough energy that basilica systems will throw everything at containing it and fail. I route docking clamp control into the same track. If Vane detonates early, the locks fry and release my tug. If the cascade completes, clamps fry open. Either way, my best chance at escape ties to the act that destroys the basilica. Then I run one more thread. Redirect local defense priority toward this junction, marking human biosigns here as primary threats. I tell myself I'm doing it to draw fire away from the docking spur. It sounds noble. It's a lie. Done. My voice feels dry. Cascade locked. Clamps tied in. Local defenses focus here. They'll treat anyone at this junction as vermin. Bash's head snaps up. You painted us as targets. You, not me. He reels back. You're serious. You wanted to save the truth, I remind him. Consider this saving something else instead. You stay, fight them, keep this junction alive long enough for the cascade to finish. When it does, Basilica falls and my ship comes free. And you? Corin's voice is barely there. I run for the dock. If I make it, I walk away with what I know. If I don't, nothing changes. Joseph, Corin whispers, this is monstrous. So is this place. So is our employer. I'm finally fitting in. Bash stares. You could stay with us. We could all try for the dock. We won't make it as a group. Vane detonates as soon as he sees us abandon the junction. If someone stays, he hesitates. He tells himself you're still on mission. And that someone has to be us. You two are the only ones with authority he recognizes, I answer. Deacon and systems tech. Canonical and technical. He'll watch your vitals and believe you're maintaining the cascade even if I move off script. Hatred burns behind Bash's visor. Not just for Vane or the Basilica, for me. Please, Corin murmurs, don't. You'd rather die here and leave my son with a debt note. You told me you had no one waiting, just the church. They'll give you a footnote. My kid gets more than a footnote. He gets a life. Bash yanks his interface from the port, hands shaking. I should fry this junction and you with it. You won't, I answer. You still want the Basilica destroyed more than I do. You don't want anyone turning this into a theme park. He looks at the block, then toward the dock, then back. You're right, he mutters. I hate that you're right. I often am. It never makes me proud. I grip his shoulder once. It feels thin and counterfeit, but it's all I have. Hold the junction. Keep the system believing you're shepherding the cascade. When the timer hits 0, everything goes white. If I make it to the ship, I'll turn around and think fondly of you when the view flares. Go to hell, Bash breathes. Already here. I push off and launch down the corridor toward the dock. The Basilica fights back. Defense nodes blossom from walls, turrets tracking my movement. The reroute I set drags many toward the junction, but not all. The station is big, old, stubborn. Some systems ignore single commands. A beam slices across the shaft a meter above my helmet, turning metal into a cloud of molten dust that freezes mid-air. Another grazes my leg armor. Alarms flash, plate holds. I don't fire back. Every shot risks attention. I move in short bursts, treating the station like a minefield that reacts to presence, not pressure. Behind me, over the shared channel, Bash and Corin fight at the junction. Defense turrets converge. Angels stir in nearby vaults. Bash's grunts and Corin's prayers climb together until static swallows them. The countdown falls. 8 minutes, 6, 4. Read. Vane snaps back into focus. Your vitals show rapid transit. Explain your deviation from plan. I'm heading to the dock. We're done. The cascade isn't complete. It will be. Bash and Corin are at the junction holding it. You'll get your demolished basilica. You don't need me dying on top of it. You abandon your team. They're fulfilling the mission. I'm exercising my tertiary objective. Survival, when convenient. It's very convenient right now. You diverted control of the clamps. I grin despite myself. You noticed. You tied them to the overload curve, he continues. If I trigger early, the locks fry and release your tug. You still get your explosion. Only difference is whether I leave at the same time. I told you I don't work for free. You understand if you depart without approval, you break canonical containment, Vane warns. I'm justified in terminating you regardless. You could, or you accept you're getting exactly what you wanted, a demolished basilica, a contained truth, and a contractor who still owes you for keeping his bond afloat. Your choice. You overestimate your value. Maybe. You underestimate your need for people like me. People who walk through places like this and come back willing to go again. Kill me now, next time you get someone worse. Maybe they screw up. Maybe they leak. Silence. My own ragged breaths and the basilica's low grinding fill the gap. You appeal to my pragmatism, Vane says at last. Wise, if not noble. I've never been noble. I just know which side of the airlock I prefer. Fine. Reach your vessel before detonation and I'll treat your departure as an acceptable anomaly. Fail, and I won't help or hinder your demise. Best blessing I've had all year. The dock opens ahead, a circular bay where our shuttle hangs in massive alien clamps. Human hull looks fragile in the basilica's cradle. The clamps grasp the shuttle's spine like a giant hand. I slam into the hull hard enough to rattle my teeth, key the hatch override. It cycles slowly, fighting subtle gravity shifts inside the bay. The countdown hits 3 minutes. Move, I mutter at the door. It opens. I haul myself in and slap the internal seal. The inner door locks. Atmosphere floods the cabin. Pressure pops my ears. I rip off my helmet and drop into the pilot couch. Evo, report! I call, knowing he's still on the tug. Silence. A red indicator glows on the panel. Autopilot standby. Beneath it, remote pilot vitals, flat. I shove it aside. Before the church recruited me, I flew tugboats and construction rigs through rubble rings for a decade. I can get this crate out if the clamps release. Clamps engaged, the shuttle's calm voice reports. Override requires external authority. External authority is about to explode. Clamp control feed comes up. The reroute held. Clamp logic ties directly into the overload curve. When the core hits threshold, they fail open. 90 seconds remain. Outside, the dock interior distorts. Walls flex as gravity fields convulse. External defenses focus deeper inside, where Bash and Corin stand. I lock my harness, fingers on manual thrust. Read. Vane comes through one last time. We've reached the point of no return. Good. Maybe that means you'll stop trying to steer it. For what it's worth, your betrayal was predictable. Your survival instinct makes you useful. Your willingness to sacrifice others makes you manageable. Glad I make your job easier. I don't approve, he replies. I acknowledge. We'll discuss your continued employment if you live. I'm sure you have plenty of jobs for someone willing to abandon a crew. Yes. The countdown hits 30. I grip the controls. Heart rate spikes. Sweat runs down my temples. The shuttle shivers with the basilica's gravity stutter, rising and falling in random waves. In my mind, I picture Bash and Corin at the junction, holding off whatever the basilica throws at them. Angels clawing through corridors, beams carving walls, the corpse in the throne soaking up energy it can't use. 10 seconds. 9, 8. A glow builds along the dock walls, reflection of something happening deep at the core. The clamps shudder. Clamp integrity compromised, the shuttle reports. Releasing. Metal fingers peel away from our hull. I slam the main thrusters. The shuttle lurches forward, ripped off the cradle. We spin. I fight it with counter-thrust, snapping the nose toward the dock opening. Behind us, the basilica's core lets go. Silence in the cabin, but every bone registers the shock. Light flares across the viewport, a dirty, jagged bloom spilling from the station's midsection, a thrashing plume of energy and rubble. The cathedral shape buckles, spires snap. The nave collapses inward. The shockwave catches us. The shuttle bucks. The harness digs into my shoulders. Alerts flood the panel. Exterior scoring, micro-fractures in aft plating, hull stress. But we're moving. We're clear. In the rear display, the Basilica of the Lost tears itself apart. Huge chunks shear away. Smaller fragments fling into space. The central mass glows like a coal, then dims as the core finally collapses. I watch until only a spreading cloud of broken rock and frozen metal remains. Somewhere in that wreck, whatever was left of the warlord on the throne is dust. So are Bash and Corin. I should feel something larger. Instead, a small hard pebble settles behind my ribs. Trajectory clear, the shuttle informs me. Rendezvous with escort craft in 6 minutes. Take us in. Autopilot takes over. My hands still shake. I lean back and close my eyes. Not prayer, just blocking the afterimage of the blast. The last view of the basilica lingers anyway. The throne is empty. Debrief is underground. The Vatican's containment wing sits beneath layers of barricaded city. Pilgrim plazas, administrative towers, museums full of relics that passed doctrinal review. Under that, the Office of Canonical Validation. Deeper still, rooms for men like me who come back from places nobody else is allowed to know exist. I sit in a windowless chamber. The table is plain, the walls are blank. A small, unadorned crucifix hangs opposite me. Official story in one symbol. Across from me, 3 officials in black suits review my report on slim slates. Not priests, bureaucrats for the holy machine. We've reviewed your telemetry. The one in the center looks up. His badge reads Auditor Lang, Internal Oversight. Your overload modifications were creative. You told me to ensure destruction. I ensured it. You also altered clamp control and local defense priority without authorization. The man on the right notes. Canonical risk. You diverted significant threat away from the docking spur and toward the override junction. I protected my exit. Predictable contractor behavior. It is, the left-hand man concedes. Logistics. The routing pattern suggests premeditation. They glance at one another, then back at me. We don't, at this time, find evidence of doctrinal sabotage, Lang concludes. No unsanctioned files left your gear. No uncontrolled recordings reached public nets. You checked my suit caches. We scrubbed them, Canonical Risk replies. Your hidden wrist recorder was found and wiped. It held fragments of the throne logs. Internal monitors flagged the bandwidth anomaly before it could leave your hardware. Lucky. Yes, Lang says. For your continued employment. They stand. That's my cue. They file out. After a few minutes, the door opens again. Bishop Vane enters in clerical black, collar a sharp white cut. Last time I saw him face to face, we were in a dock, arguing hazard pay. Down here, on his own ground, he looks taller. He takes the chair opposite me. You survived. So did you. Of course. I wasn't under half an asteroid wrestling with angels. He folds his hands on the table. The basilica is gone, he says. Orbital scans show rubble only. No significant mass intact. No broadcast patterns match the throne's beacon. So we won, I answer, if that's the word. We prevented panic. He tilts his head slightly. We kept your warlord from being found by anyone unprepared to understand him. I understood him fine. Petty creature who thought the universe owed him fuel and worship. And yet he nearly reshaped human civilization by accident. Vane's gaze sharpens. Our job is to keep that kind of arbitrary power out of human hands, including yours. You scrubbed my recorder. We scrubbed what we found. That catches my attention. What you found? I'm not naive, Joseph. His tone stays mild. You've done this work for years. You were always going to try to keep something. A fragment, a symbol, a backdoor. Our world runs on that bargaining. I can't erase every piece of leverage an intelligent man gathers. I can only make sure he understands the cost of using it. So you think I still have something? And you're letting me walk around with it? I'm letting you walk around under our patronage. He slides a slate across the table. Your debts are cleared. Your son's education account now draws from an internal fund that never appears on civilian registries. In exchange, you'll sign this. I pick it up. Short document. A vow framed as contract. I acknowledge the sanctity of classified matters. I agree to reveal no specifics of Site Null, the Basilica of the Lost, the throne occupant, or related phenomena to anyone without proper authority. Violation counts as heresy and treason. Sign and you go home, Vane says. Refuse, and we have a different conversation with fewer options. You killed my team, I tell him. You turned them into expendable pieces. They were always expendable. His tone doesn't change. So are you. The difference is that you realized it sooner. You think that makes me easier to control. I think it makes you honest, he replies. Honesty is useful. So is guilt. He holds my gaze. You left them there, Joseph. You chose. You'll have years to think about that, paid for by the bond we now cover for your son. If you ever consider revealing what you know, remember, anything you expose harms not only distant institutions, it harms your son, his housing, his prospects, his safety. I don't need to threaten you directly. I only need to point that out. You're enjoying this. This isn't enjoyment. This is maintenance. The universe is indifferent. We aren't. We can't be. That separates us from your warlord in the chair. I don't see much difference. The difference, Vane says quietly, is that I know I'll die ordinary. He thought he was a god. I look down at the slate. Signing means security for me and my kid. It also means admitting what I did in the Basilica wasn't temporary necessity. It was a template. I chose survival and money over comrades and truth. And now I'm writing that choice into the record. Not signing means throwing myself at a machine that's been grinding dissenters since before my grandparents were born. I sign. Vane doesn't smile. He takes the slate, taps confirmation. Payment clears within the hour, he says. Your son's fund is already protected. You'll receive further assignments when we have them. Until then, enjoy what your labor earned. I stand. Do I get a blessing? If you want one. I think about it. Keep it. You'll need it more than I do. He inclines his head. We'll be in touch. The bar is in orbit, not close to Earth, where the church keeps tight hands on unsupervised stations, but on a transfer ring between Earth and Mars, a mixed hub where workers, traders, and mid-level officials unwind between contracts. I sit at the counter with a drink made from synthetic grain. The taste is harsh. That's why I ordered it. I want it to cut. Around me, the place is crowded. Men in work harnesses, officers in crisp uniforms, a few robed clerics off duty. Screens along the ceiling run news feeds. One shows highlights from a public mass in a floating basilica over Rio. Another runs economic reports. A third teases a segment on unusual deep space signals. I keep my eyes on the mass. The broadcast shows thousands under a dome of glass and gold. The bishop at the altar, an older man, not Vane, raises a monstrance toward the sky, towards stars projected on the dome. A commentator explains how the church guides humanity safely into the frontier, filters dangerous relics, protects souls from misleading wonders. People in the bar bow their heads for a moment as the broadcast peaks. They cross themselves, whisper quick prayers. None of them know their god started as a stranded warlord, calling them defective stock and demanding they build him a toe. Maybe they never have to. Under the skin of my left forearm, an implant hums. Not church issue, older, from my shipyard days. A buffer node a friend baked into my nerves for nav data. During the mission, when suit systems linked, my hidden recorder mirrored part of its buffer into that node. The church scrubbed my suit when I got back. They didn't touch my body. I tap my wrist on the counter, bring up a local sync. My HUD flickers. A file tree appears. Most entries are blank. One isn't. Throne log frag 7. I open it. The recording is corrupted at the edges. Noise flickers. What remains is a short loop, the throne occupant in projection standing in his chamber. The translator overlays the same flat human voice. Client world remains inadequate, it reports. Their leaders praise my signals without sending tithe. They build houses for my words instead of engines for my rescue. They kneel and sing while my core rots. If relief never arrives, I will consume them as punishment. If relief arrives, I will consume them as example. They are interchangeable. The fragment ends and restarts. I freeze it mid-frame. The warlord's face holds no mystery, no wisdom, just irritation and hunger. I let the loop hang in my private vision while the bar hums around me. To my left, mechanics argue about shipyard assignments. To my right, clerics watch the mass feed and murmur their responses on cue. I could share the fragment. The bar's mesh network runs loose. Plenty of freelance nets bounce through. I could shove the log into one, tag it with an anonymous hint, and watch it spread. Someone would verify. Someone would leak it wider. Within months, every believer in the system would have to face the fact that the voice they worship speaks of them as interchangeable fuel. It would feel like justice. It would also feel like tossing a match into a room full of dry timber. I picture my son, Jonah, in a dorm room on Earth, textbooks open, a church-approved icon blinking on his desk, telling him God loves him and the Vatican watches his soul. I picture him getting a news alert that the faith he grew up in started as a misread threat from a stranded alien tyrant. I picture riots, sect wars, governments toppling. I picture the office tracing the leak back to me through layers of obfuscation I'm not clever enough to build. I picture Vane lifting a finger and my heart stopping. Survival when convenient. I close the file. The loop vanishes. The warlord's face dissolves. I don't erase it. I leave it intact and bury it deeper, encrypted under layers of meaningless data. Enough that if someone ever digs my implants apart, they might find it. Enough that I never quite forget it's there. On the screens, the bishop in the orbital basilica finishes his homily on trust and surrender and how humanity isn't alone. The congregation answers with a roar of prayer. A news crawl rolls along the bottom. Unusual signal activity detected beyond Neptune orbit. Authorities monitoring. Details after the break. Something tightens in me that hadn't moved since the basilica. Maybe it's just another pulsar or survey glitch. Maybe it's something like site null. Maybe it's another throne. The feed jumps to sports. The bar cheers as a team scores in Lunar Gravball. I raise my glass. I think of Bash at the junction, holding on while defense turrets and half-built angels tore at his suit. I think of Corin whispering prayers as beams carved through walls. I think of Rusk swinging his rig until the choir pulled him apart. I think of the throne and the empty space where a god should have been. I drink. Around me, people laugh, argue, flirt, pray. The church keeps the fear at bay. The office keeps truth edited enough to bear. The stars outside stay distant and quiet. I carry the knowledge that our God died alone on a metal chair, angry and afraid, hated by his own kind. I also carry a cleared debt and a son whose future is secured by the institution that hides that fact. That's the bargain. I sit in the bar, surrounded by faith and noise and the glow of 1,000 screens, and listen to my pulse in my ears, counting down the years I have left to spend this payment. Survival is what I earned. Everything else, the dead warlord, the smiling bishop, the empty throne drifting as dust in the belt, is just context.